I'm just out here surviving kind of the way the military taught me to survive in there.
Eventually, I just said I'm dropping out of society.
So I'm Mark Solomon with Veterans Community Project. I'm one of the founders. 5 years ago, 4 combat veterans got together, myself included, and came up with an idea on a napkin to basically figure out a way to say yes to veterans who were homeless, providing services in order to keep them from being homeless or helping them when they are homeless. 5 years later, we're a nationwide organization, and it's been tremendous growth, and we're helping veterans now in multiple parts of the country. We started in Kansas City, which is home base, and our first expansion city is going to be Longmont, and we are very, very excited about that. So the name Veterans Community Project really was a combination of things. We mulled it over for a while in order to figure out, hey, what are we going to call ourselves? Bottom line, it really is about veterans as who we serve. And we determined early on that this is going to be a project. It's not anything that's going to stop anytime soon. Our goal is to put ourselves out of business. We just know that there's always a need for veterans, connecting veterans with services. And the community being in the middle is honestly not by accident. We knew that it was going to take a community to help us make this happen, whether it's the veteran community, the civilian community, business, government. All of those people have to come together to make this happen. And so really that's what the name means, and it's been absolutely proven that it's the right thing. Without the community being in the middle of that and holding those things together, we would not be as successful as we are. One of the reasons that this is important to me is the fact that I'm an immigrant. I was born in Canada. Don't hold that against me. I was born in Canada and grew up in Des Moines about the time I was 4 years old. And my parents taught us that paying it forward is important. And that's whether my sister and I used to volunteer with my mom at a nursing home where she worked, mostly out of necessity because they couldn't afford daycare. And so we would go and we'd volunteer, and we didn't like it at the time. Later on, that set the foundation for being involved and, again, paying it forward in the community later for both my sister and I. I also remember a time when I went to, on vacation, family vacation. I think I was in high school at the time. We went to Hawaii and visited Pearl Harbor. And I was just in awe about the sacrifice that these sailors had made in trying to save their ships or defend their country against just a blind attack, on a random Sunday morning. And I wanted to go back and pay my respects in uniform someday. I remember thinking that in my head. And so joined private sector right out of college, and that military thing kind of kept gnawing at me. After 9/11, which wasn't actually a motivator for me, it was just after 9/11 timing-wise, I thought, you know what, I need to re-engage. So the Navy had a program where you could join in as an officer straight off the streets with no prior service. So I applied for that program, and then they denied me. So I applied the next year. You can only do it once a year. So I applied the next year, and they said no again. I'm a little hard-headed, so I applied the third year, finished my master's degree, and they actually accepted me. I think they were tired of hearing from me at that point and just decided that it was okay. So I got in that was 2004, and it's been an amazing thing since. So I deployed in 2007 to Iraq, spent 2007, part of 2008 there. And I spent time with the Army actually in Baghdad. They called us sand sailors while we were there, and basically provided information to the 3-star general who was in charge of the war. And came back and worked in a defense contracting company for a few years after that. Sold real estate part-time, ended up doing that full-time. At one point, one of the other co-founders here just about 5 years ago came to me and knew that I had served and said, hey, we're thinking about starting an organization that is going to say yes to vets. And they already, a couple of the other founders already worked in veterans organizations. The problem was not the people working in the organizations, the problem was really the funding for those organizations. A lot of these organizations are tied to the funding based on the service they provide. So if they're housing a vet, they're able to house a vet, and that's really the amount of service they can provide. And they're very heavily reliant on other organizations to help fill the gaps of whatever additional services those folks need. Again, not because the people working there aren't good, it's just that's where the money is. The money is housing, and that's what you do. And unfortunately, there are a lot of gaps there. So it's hard just this morning we were talking about a vet who basically one of the other founders had to make this vet homeless. He said, go sleep in a shelter tonight, and tomorrow I can provide services for you because you're homeless at that point. The guy needed $250 to pay his rent. Well, by the time he got home the next day, all of his stuff was out on the streets. The landlord had just literally thrown his stuff literally into the street, and it was because we couldn't get him $250 the day before just to be able to pay rent and stay current. Chris Stout, one of the co-founders, decided that he was done with that, so we wanted to do something differently. And so, again, with my service, and Chris and I knew each other through our kids going to the same school, we got together and we just sort of hashed out this plan to say yes to vets. So saying yes to vets sounds easy on paper, or on a napkin in this case, is where we started. What we really needed to do was figure out what that meant, right? What are we going to do? We originally were thinking about, in Kansas City, retrofitting some schools that had been shut down and weren't being used anymore. We started looking into that, and it was going to be super expensive to try and redo those. At the time, there were all these new shows popping up on TV about tiny houses, and one of the friends of a friend basically said, well, what about these tiny house things? And so we started looking into that. Way less expensive, and we thought, okay, we can do that. So we came up with the idea for the tiny houses through that. It also gives us some really neat things that we can do for vets because of the size of the houses. From a cost perspective, it also allows us to be really flexible in terms of how we do what we do and where we do those things. So that was kind of where it started from, was really kind of an accident. In starting this, where we are today, 5 years later, it seems somewhat easy. 5 years ago, we were defining what the definition of veteran is. So the VA has their own definition of veteran. As a reservist, I would have to serve 6 total years as a reservist, doing my 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, before I'd be considered a vet. So if I left, let's say in 5 years, because something happened or whatever it was, I wouldn't be eligible for most veteran services. Again, there's nuances to that, but there's so many definitions, it's very convoluted, and we determined in our organization that in order to say yes to vets and provide all these services, our definition is anyone who ever took the oath. At some point, especially when you take the oath of service, you're willing to put your life on the line for your country. So we determined that whether that was 5 minutes of service or 35 years, dishonorable discharge, honorable, it doesn't matter to us. At some point, you were willing to give your life for your country, and that's good enough for us to be able to provide services back. All of these little details, which turn out to make a big impact, helped us define what this was going to be, and we've learned along the way over the years, yet here we are being able to provide those services to veterans. So our houses are transitional in nature. The idea is that we want folks to acclimate to the program that we provide, and it's designed around each vet. Again, our private funding model, we don't take any government funds, so our private funding model allows us to customize each program to each vet. So anyone who ends up in one of these tiny houses meets regularly with a caseworker, and again, the program is designed around them. Transitional meaning anywhere between whatever time they need up to 24 months. What's really neat about our program as well is they get to maintain their homeless status, even though we're helping them get to a position of being housed. There are some reasons for that, one of them being that we want them to be able to transition to some of these programs that already exist. Again, our goal is never to reinvent. If they are not homeless anymore, they're not eligible for some of these programs. So with that definition, they're able to maintain their homeless status while we're still being able to provide services for them. Then they can transition to the next phase after they're done. What's really powerful about that is while they're in this house, we can provide anywhere from basic services to more complex services, either ourselves or with outside organizations. So again, we don't have to reinvent anything. We teach vets how to cook, how to clean, how to budget, how to grocery shop. To the point of if a vet doesn't know how to grocery shop, we can literally put them in our car, drive them to the grocery store, and walk them through that process. And people think that, oh, well, once you have a house, you're good, right? Or once you have a stable place or a roof over your head, that's good enough. Some of our vets have been living on the streets for decades. And so the opportunity is there where you lose those skills, you gain other skills. So we have to reintegrate people into housing. And what does that mean to have a house? And what does it mean if your toaster breaks, how do you replace that? Do you have the funds to go do that? So these are all skill sets that we have to teach, sometimes from basics, hygiene to budgeting, things like that. And then what's really, really cool is that once they leave our program, now they're set up when they get an apartment in one of these other programs that exist. Now they have an apartment, now they know how to use that apartment. They're not learning on the fly there. We've had a chance to help train them. So we're sending these folks off to these other programs ready to succeed. Also with the private funding model, we are able to provide caseworkers or case management in a one-on-one basis. 8 to 1 is our number, so for every caseworker or case manager, we'll have 8 vets. Our goal is ultimately to have that as a 4 to 1. There'll be lots and lots of there is already, and there will continue to be lots of one-on-one time with case management and our veterans. That's how we're going to succeed, is through community partnerships and not micromanaging, but helping people get to where they need to be. We've been reached out to by over 600 other cities that said, hey, we love what you're doing in Kansas City. Can you come to our community? Longmont is our second community that we're expanding into, and there's a reason for that. It is really the community. We've had great support from the city council, the mayor, people in the community. One of the supporters is a developer here who came to visit us in Kansas City. The city itself was looking for an opportunity to help veterans particularly, and so a developer on a committee here went out and visited different veteran organizations and came across us, and we actually blew him off, truthfully. We were busy and didn't have time for him. On his own, more or less, with a little bit of support from us, he just loved what he saw in Kansas City, came back, mentioned it to the council here in the committee, and they invited us out to take a look. Long story short, here we are, and again, it's just entirely because of the community that we're here. What we're going to do is we've got a brand new area, or an area that's being developed with houses, single-family residence. And on the back side of this development will be 25 of our tiny houses for homeless veterans. It's a really neat model, and I can tell you the developer has start over. What's really neat about the model here in Longmont is this development will have homeless veterans living next to expensive houses with views of the mountains. It helps take the stigma away from homelessness. People have an idea of what that is. The reality is these are people that there's nothing specific that causes homelessness. There are some things that can lead to it. There's no one reason that people are homeless. And these are just your neighbors. These are just people. These are, in our case, people who are willing, again, to put their lives on the line for their country. So what we wanted to do here is, with the help of the community, is have a place where we can house veterans, provide those services, and yet still be absolutely involved in the community. And it was a novel idea we had never thought of, and basically the developer came and said, hey, can we do this? And we said, sure, let's see what happens. With the city's support, we've been able to move things fairly quickly, and I will tell you, the city of Kansas City has been tremendously supportive of us and our mission. It took us 4 years to build our first set of houses in Kansas City. Here in Longmont, just as a testament to the city government and the folks that are here working the staff, we'll basically do the same thing that we did in Kansas City in a year. So it is pretty, again, a good testament to the fact that the people here are really excited about an opportunity to help their neighbors. Lots of programs have waiting lists. We don't want to have a waiting list. We want to be able to talk to a veteran and then get them to the services they need. Truthfully, one of the smallest pieces of service that we provide is our housing. There are so many other things that veterans need. Some of that is housing, and again, there are other programs that provide some of that. So our goal is really to connect people where they need to be connected and have an opportunity for housing. So it's a combination thing. So what we do is basically, as veterans come to us for other services, it gives us an opportunity to screen them and ask lots of questions. So I could go to a veterans community project and ask questions about, hey, I need some help with this problem. Well, then basically what happens is we ask a series of questions around that. In Kansas City, we have a small food pantry. We're able to provide quick bag with immediate needs for food. Same with clothing, warm items for the winter, things like that. So we can move fairly quickly in just providing immediate support to really just getting them in the door. Once we ask those questions, then we can start providing the additional support necessary, including the potential of a house, if that makes sense for that vet. One of the things we do that we're excited about is that we're really veterans helping other veterans. People want to say thank you for your service, and we appreciate that very much. We signed up for it, we volunteered for it. We don't mind the thanks. Sometimes people think, though, that we need to treat our veterans with kid gloves. Sometimes, these are the most capable people in the world, sometimes we need to do a little bit of tough love as well. And as a veteran, and working with another veteran who's homeless or has some other issues, they'll say, oh, well, I've done this. Well, guess what? I did too. So there's a sense of credibility that comes with that, and then we can sort of push them along a little bit and help keep them motivated and moving in a way that sometimes civilians aren't able to help with in terms of military. So once we do that sort of screening in terms of what their immediate needs are, that allows us to help figure out what they need. Again, it's not we may not have houses available immediately for any particular vet. We will connect them with the services that they do need in order to make sure that they're not sleeping on the streets. If they're ready for help and they want that help, we're going to make sure that that happens. So when we identify a veteran and we have a home available, again, they're transitional in nature, so the first thing we do is really sit down with that vet and understand what their needs are. Really drill down into what services and support they need. When they get to the house, what they're greeted with is our individual houses are 240 square feet and 12 by 20, which doesn't seem like a lot of space. I will tell you, though, that it is an amazing amount of things you can fit in there. We've got a full kitchen, refrigerator, all of that. They can cook, like I mentioned earlier, they can cook there. We've got a full bathroom with a shower. We have larger units, a family unit. They're palatial at 320 square feet that sleep up to 6 people with a pull-out couch, bed, and bunk beds, 3 bunk beds. And those are also ADA compliant, so vets that need additional wider doors, things like that, we can accommodate. When they get there and they're in the house, they get regular checks, like I mentioned, with our caseworkers. And that's, again, that private funding, I keep coming back to that. The reason is that allows us to make sure that we're doing this individualized care for our vets. So they meet regularly with the case managers. They'll check on the vets in the house. No drugs, no alcohol, things like that. And keeping them on track for where they need to be. So let's say a veteran does have PTSD type issues. One of the things we've done is design the house around the potential of that. The windows are all on the one end by the door. So in the back corner where the bed is, there are no windows. It's kind of a safe space. When I go out to a restaurant, my wife knows she'll typically sit with her back to the door or to the room so that I can face the room and take just keep looking and make sure. When I go out to public events, I'm always looking around to see what's going on and where's the nearest exits and things like that. That doesn't stop me from enjoying my time. There are vets, though, that can't not think about those things, right? So we wanted to create a space where that's not an issue for them. So they have control of their space. We have access to the houses all the time, so the vets are always going to be safe. They, though, can lock their doors, so they feel good about being in their own space. And again, the windows are all on one side so they can see what's going on. And there are rules. There are things that people have to follow in order to be able to be in this program. That's what's also important for a vet who ends up in one of our tiny houses. They have to be willing to follow the rules. They have to be willing to help themselves. And there's going to be some times where it's tough love. And that's the important part, is they have to sign up and they know going into this what the rules are, the amount of reporting in that they'll have to do and the amount of care that we're going to take with them. They know all of that up front and they're willing to sign up and do it. And then, like I said, we will jump through every hoop possible to make sure that vet is successful. One of the ways in Longmont as we expand that we're going to provide additional services is we're already starting meetings with the folks that already do this. So the folks that are already out there, under the bridges, meeting veterans and helping veterans. As I mentioned before, we're not trying to reinvent anything that they're already doing, so we're already having meetings with those folks. The way Longmont is going to be set up is we'll have a small area at our Veterans Village with the 25 houses where we'll have our staff working to help support the folks that are there. There'll be a small facility in Longmont, we're still working on where, that will be for folks that need immediate assistance in the area, veterans. They can walk in and get that kind of connection to services. We're also, as part of our expansion plans, looking in the Denver area, metro area, or one of the suburbs with easy access to the VA in order to provide additional services for veterans in the region. So we'll have a bigger facility there as well that, again, vets can walk into, just kind of like we do in Kansas City, where they can walk in, they'll get asked a series of questions, and then it's kind of a triage really, and then just connect them directly with services. That facility, again, will be likely near the VA, because a lot of the vets who are eligible, we want to make sure that we can get them there and guide them through that process as well. And the Denver area has a great brand new VA facility, and so we want to utilize, again, the services that are already out there to make sure that we can, it's quick help. That's what we're trying to do. When a vet needs assistance, when anyone needs assistance for that matter, but our veterans as well, we want to be able to quickly move and provide that. Back to that private funding model, we can just do that. If it's a vet who's not eligible for VA services and they just need to go see a doctor, let's say, we can pay for that. Because we are privately funded, we can say yes to that vet, and we can say, you need to see a doctor. We're going to drive you over to this doctor who we have a great relationship with. They're going to be the experts in this field, and we're going to pay the bill so that you can get seen and get healthy. That's the point, is we get to say yes. We don't have to, we just get to. And that's the power behind the community support. We can't do that on our own. We can't just make that up. It's going to be that doctor who wants to help us, that civilian doctor. It's going to be the developer who's helping with us. It's going to be the city council, the city staff that are helping make sure that we can get through the permitting processes and do things the right way. All of our houses meet code, local code, building code, and all that. They're permanent structures. So it's housing with dignity that the community is going to help make sure that we are providing all of the services, the wraparound services, and it's going to be something that the community is going to be really proud of. One of the best ways for people to get involved is to go to our website, which sounds easy, and I promise it is. It's just www.veteranscommunityproject.org. I encourage them first, before they do anything on that website, is click on the button that says donation, and then go ahead and do that. And then after they're done donating, then they can go look around at all the other things we do. There's pictures of the tiny houses out there. They can click on another button that says volunteer, and absolutely they can volunteer for opportunities out here. What's amazing about our reach, we've had some national press recently, and we've had people sign up for all over the country. And when we go to different places in the country, even sometimes to just visit, we're able to engage with our volunteers in that city. We may not have a presence there, other than we just happen to be there for a weekend for an event of some sort, a veterans thing, and we can engage with our volunteers that way. So anybody who's interested in volunteering, just go to our website, click on the volunteer tab. There'll be an option for the Longmont area as a volunteer opportunity. And then as we get going and have opportunities, and I promise there will be lots of opportunities, more than just donations, there will be opportunities to swing hammers and do all kinds of things for veterans. We will reach out to people and let them know that we're ready. Also, our Facebook page is a wealth of information, so if they just want to go out to Facebook, if that's easier.